My name is Tessa Randall. I'm 29 years old, and by most measures, I'm doing fine. On paper, I'm the kind of person people point to when they say, she made it out. I'm a senior software engineer at a tech company in Oregon. I've been there for 7 years. They hired me when I was just a sleep-deprived college freshman, pulling shifts at the campus help desk, and I clawed my way up from part-time code janitor to the person they bring into meetings when things are on fire. After taxes, I make over $150,000 a year. I own a small house, a sensible car, and a coffee machine that costs more than any pair of shoes I've ever bought. People at work joke that I'm set. But most nights when I come home, it's quiet. Too quiet. Technically, I'm not alone. I do have a boyfriend, Ethan. He's in project management, travels a lot for work, and we're still in that two apartments, one relationship phase. We see each other on weekends, send memes on weekdays, and talk about someday. Still, there are nights when I stand in my kitchen, microwave humming, and feel like my life is just a well-decorated waiting room. If you're wondering about my family, that's harder to answer. I used to say I had a family. Parents, an older sister named Alice, and a niece, Lydia, who was my favorite human on the planet. For a long time, I convinced myself we were close. I showed up when they needed me, picked up the check when it was awkward, called on holidays, and sent gifts on time. But this story is about the moment I realized I wasn't family to them. I was a line of credit. It started with a phone call about a year ago, on a weekday afternoon. I was at my desk, halfway through a ticket about a bug that only appeared on a browser no one used, when my phone buzzed. Alice. I let it ring right up until the second tone, then answered. Hey, I said, still half reading my screen. Tess, Lydia's birthday is this weekend. Make sure you come, she said. No hello, no how are you? Her voice was brisk, like she was confirming a delivery. Got it, I replied. She hung up. No small talk. 30 seconds later, a text came in with the time and address of the restaurant. I glanced at the name of the place and froze. It was one of the most upscale kids' venues in town, the kind you see in influencer reels. Private party rooms, themed decorations, buffet, a dedicated play area, staff entertainers, even goodie bags that probably cost more than the gifts. With nearly 20 people invited, I did the math automatically, at least $3,000. Maybe closer to $4,000 if they went all out. I frowned, then shook it off. Not my business, I told myself. I put my phone face down and went back to work. Less than 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Mom, I sighed, picked up. Hi, Mom. Tessa, don't forget Lydia's birthday, she reminded me warmly. Saturday evening, and bring a nice gift, okay? I will, I said. I already have an idea. She hummed approvingly, then added, You know how she adores cooking. Make it special for her. I know, Mom, I said, smiling despite myself. I've got it. That was my mom, always making sure everyone else remembered what they were supposed to do, always assuming I'd step up. It used to feel like trust. Now I see it differently. On Saturday, around 5 in the evening, I pulled into the restaurant parking lot. In my hands, I carried a carefully wrapped box, a toy cooking set with dolls, pots, pans, a mini pink electric stove, and a tiny apron. It wasn't the most expensive thing I could afford, not by a long shot, but Lydia loved pretend cooking shows. She'd send me little videos where she mixed water and cereal and called it soup. When I saw that set, I knew it was hers. I took a breath, smoothed my hair, and walked into the private party room. Relatives from my mom's side were already there, plus some cousins and both of my parents. The room was a sea of balloons and purple banners. A giant sign with Lydia's name hung in the center, like she was the star of a TV show. Aunt Tess! Before I could fully take it in, a small figure barreled toward me. Lydia, wearing a paper crown, slightly crooked on her head, a smear of frosting on her cheek, launched herself at me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I bent down, balancing the box awkwardly, and hugged her back. Hey, birthday girl, I said, kissing the top of her head. I brought something from my little chef. Her eyes widened as I handed her the box. She immediately plopped down on the floor and tore into the wrapping paper. When she saw what was inside, she gasped. Oh my gosh, it has a mini oven, she squealed. Aunt Tess, this looks just like the one in that video I watched yesterday. Her face was pure light. For a moment, that was enough. That look, that happiness, made the entire week's stress melt off my shoulders. Then my sister's voice sliced through the room. You're a senior software engineer, Tess. You make good money, and you get your niece a toy set that costs, what, a few dozen bucks? I looked up. Alice was seated at the table, glass in hand, eyes fixed on her drink, like she'd just made a casual observation. She didn't even look at me. My dad chimed in, voice low and disapproving. She's right. You're her aunt, Tessa. People might look at that gift the wrong way. Mom followed, her tone softer, but no less cutting. You don't have to spend a fortune, honey, but a bit more thought for a child's birthday wouldn't hurt. I stood there, my hand resting on Lydia's small shoulder. No one said anything in my defense. Some relatives pretended not to hear. Others stared at their plates. My cheeks burned, but my voice came out steady. Okay, I'll be more thoughtful next time. Inside, I wanted to walk out right then. But it was Lydia's day, not mine. I swallowed the humiliation like I'd been trained to do since childhood and stayed. The party rolled on. They dimmed the lights and played a birthday song on the big screen. Lydia stood in front of a 2-tier purple cake, grinning as everyone sang. She blew out the candles, and for a brief second, the room sparkled with genuine joy. I sat at the far end of the long table, between 2 cousins I barely saw anymore. They talked about mortgage rates and their kids' school projects. I nodded when it seemed appropriate and silently counted the decorations. Balloon arch, banner, photo corner with a MasterChef Junior theme, personalized cups. This party was not cheap. Dinner arrived, honey-roasted chicken, salad, pizza, spaghetti, soda, snacks. People laughed, called to each other to pass dishes, swapped stories I didn't remember being part of. 30 minutes later, the lights shifted and upbeat music started playing. A clown in a bright outfit appeared at the door, making balloon swords and poodles, pulling scarves out of nowhere. The kids screamed with delight. I watched from my corner, feeling like an extra at a show that someone else had paid for. After the performance, a staff member rolled in a table full of party favors. Each child got a little bag filled with candy, stickers, toys, and a coupon for their next visit. I took it all in, line by line. The private room, the decorations, the clown, the photographer quietly snapping photos. I knew enough about numbers to estimate. 3,000 at least, probably closer to 4. My family wasn't poor, but they definitely weren't wealthy. No one here could drop that kind of money casually. So I wondered, did Alice get a bonus? Did Mom pitch in? Did Bryce suddenly land a big deal? I had guesses, but I didn't have the answer. Not yet. About half an hour later, when the kids were starting to slow down and the adults were deep into post-meal chatter, I saw Alice stand up. She picked up her small purse and walked toward the front counter, shoulders squared like she was about to handle something important. For a second, I felt oddly proud. Maybe she really did save up for this. Maybe Mom helped her. Maybe, for once, I wasn't the default option. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced down. You've made a payment of $3,842.20 at Bounce and Bites Playhouse. My heart stopped. The room blurred. I opened my banking app with numb fingers and checked the details. The card used wasn't my primary one. It was the supplementary card. The one I'd opened 3 years ago for my mom. The one I had explicitly told her was for household bills only. Electricity, water, gas. Not luxury birthday parties. Not nearly $4,000. I looked up toward the counter. Alice was there, signing a receipt, smiling politely at the staff member. A roar of questions rose in my chest. Should I walk over? Should I ask what the hell she thought she was doing? Should I insist they cancel the charge on the spot? Or was this already a done deal in their minds? A family decision I just hadn't been informed of. I glanced back at the floor. Lydia was still playing with the toy cooking set I'd brought. She held up a plastic pot to one of my cousin's kids and said, "It's ready. Eat up." She had no idea. I took a slow breath, put my phone back in my pocket, and stepped out from my corner. First, I walked to Bryce, my brother-in-law. He was chatting with 2 of our cousins, beer in hand. "Hey, Bryce," I said quietly, but firmly. "Can you take Lydia and those 2 outside? Maybe to the play area? I need to handle something, and I don't want the kids watching adults argue." He blinked at me, confused, then glanced toward Alice at the counter. Whatever he saw in my face made him nod. A few minutes later, the kids were led out of the room. Only then did I turn to my parents' table. By the time Alice came back, her wallet in hand, I was standing there waiting. "You used my card to pay," I said, my voice steady but cold. "Why did you do that without asking me first?" She set her wallet down, crossed her arms, and shrugged. "Because we took a vote," she said. "We decided you'd pay for the party." I stared at her. "A vote? Who voted? When?" Mom answered like she was explaining something obvious. "You're single, Tess. You make good money. No one else can afford a party like this. Your sister just wanted Lydia to have a special memory. We all thought it made sense for you to take care of it. It's her daughter's party, I said slowly. Not mine. If you wanted help, you could have asked. Instead, you used my card without telling me. Dad put his drink down, eyes hard. You can afford it. Why are you making such a big deal? A few thousand isn't much with what you earn. I turned back to Alice. You really don't see anything wrong with this? She didn't hesitate. No, you don't have kids. You don't pay for tuition or insurance or any of that. You live alone. You earn a lot. Why shouldn't you contribute something to the family? It's once a year. For a moment, the room went silent. It felt like everyone was watching us, even the balloons. Something in me cracked, and then just as quickly solidified. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded once. Okay, I said, got it. Then I turned around and walked out of my niece's birthday party, leaving behind the laughter, the music, and the people who had just made it very clear what I was to them. Not a daughter, not a sister. Just the person they voted to pay. I didn't sleep that night. I went through the motions, drove home, took off my shoes by the door, dropped my keys in the little bowl by the entryway. The house was quiet, the way I used to like it. That night it felt hostile. Every shadow looked like judgment. I put my phone on this kitchen counter, screen still showing that notification, $3,842.20 Bounce and Bites Playhouse. My name, my card, my debt. I poured myself a glass of water, but my hands shook so badly the rim of the glass clinked against my teeth when I tried to drink. It wasn't just the money. I could afford it. That was what made it worse. If it had been about the money, maybe they'd at least have looked a little guilty. Instead, they acted like I was a walking sponsorship, like this was my role, like I owed them this. I carried my phone to the couch and sat down in the dark living room. The glow of the screen lit up the room just enough to remind me that this house, every piece of furniture, every bill, had come from years of saying yes to everything except myself. My thumb hovered over my messages with Ethan. Me. Party went okay. Lydia loved the gift. That's what I'd texted him earlier, on autopilot. I stared at the empty input box. I thought for a moment about pouring everything out, telling him about the vote, the unauthorized card swipe, the way my parents defended it. I imagined his face, that familiar crease between his brows when he was worried for me. Then something old and familiar snapped shut inside me. Don't make a fuss. Don't be dramatic. Don't be the problem. I locked the screen instead and dropped the phone onto the cushion beside me. My chest ached. As I sat there in this dim light, memories started surfacing, the kind you think you've forgotten until your body reminds you they're still filed away. I was 10 the first time I realized there were two categories of spending in our house, things we had to discuss for me, and things we just did for Alice. Alice was older, the golden child who always seemed to be at the center of the conversation. Her textbooks were always bought first. Her prom dresses were investments. Her birthday parties were planned like small weddings. Streamers, snacks, store-bought cake with candles, a handful of friends. For me, birthdays were different. No balloons, no invitations, just a small meal if Dad happened to have the day off. Sometimes a cake from Walmart if it was on sale. I remember one year eating slices of frozen pizza at the kitchen table while Mom said, "We'll do something bigger next year, okay?" There was never a bigger next year. My clothes were always good enough. End-of-season sale items Mom grabbed in a hurry. My backpack was plain. My shoes were sturdy. I never asked for anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. Not because I didn't want more, because every time the word want formed in my mouth, I could already see Mom's tired eyes and Dad's tight jaw. The air would get heavy with numbers they weren't saying out loud. So I learned young. If I stayed small, things stayed calmer. It felt noble at the time, like I was helping, like that was my role. It wasn't until much later that I realized I had mistaken being overlooked for being easy to love. When I left for college, I thought things would change. I got into software engineering, the one field that had lit me up since I first took apart an old desktop at 14. I knew my parents couldn't help much financially, so I didn't even bother asking. I signed the student loans. I told myself I'd figure it out. Freshman year, I worked as many hours as I could, teaching assistant during the day, campus help desk at night. On weekends, I fixed laptops in my dorm hallway, installed Windows for cash, did whatever small tech jobs people needed. I can't remember how many times I fell asleep on a lab keyboard with the screen still glowing in my face. I do remember my bank balance always dancing just above zero. I never asked my parents for extra money, not once. I didn't want that look. I didn't want that pause. Except one time. Sophomore year, right before midterms, my laptop died. Just refused to turn on one afternoon. I panicked. No laptop meant no assignments, no code, nothing. I texted Mom, "My computer won't power on. I think I'll have to get it fixed." I didn't ask for money, I just stated the problem. That night, she transferred me $300. The notification popped up while I was wiping tables at the bakery near campus. The memo line in the transfer just said, "Keep going. We don't have much, but we believe in you." I stood in the back room and stared at that message until my eyes blurred. Then I wiped my face with the inside of my sleeve and went back to work. In that moment, I made a decision I never said out loud. If they could send me that money when things were tight, then I had no excuse, no right to complain, no right to be tired. From then on, no matter how exhausted or burned out I was, my standard answer to, "How are you?" was, "I'm fine." 3 years ago, Mom retired. Dad picked up part-time shifts at a bookstore nearby. Not for the money, he said, but to stay busy. I checked in with them more often, asked if they were doing okay. They always said they were. Then one evening, Mom called. "The electricity bill this month is high," she said, voice thin with worry. "I don't even know why." She didn't ask for money. She never did. That was the worst part. She just let the sentence hang there. I didn't ask for numbers. I didn't lecture her about budgeting. I opened my laptop and logged into my banking portal. "Mom," I said, "I'm going to send you a supplementary card from my credit account. It's for household bills, electricity, water, gas. That's it. If you ever don't need it anymore, tell me and I'll cancel it, okay?" She protested a little, the way moms do. "You don't have to, Tess. You already do so much. We'll manage." But her voice sounded tired, and the thought of her worrying over whether to turn off lights to save a few dollars made my stomach twist. I sent the card. I wrote a note on a little piece of paper and tucked it inside the envelope. "For household bills only. I love you." For almost 2 years, that card behaved exactly like it was supposed to. Regular charges, utilities, nothing odd. I checked it monthly just to be sure. It felt like a small, quiet way to take care of them. Then tonight happened. I looked down at my phone again. The transaction glared at me from the app. $3,842.20. Kids party venue. I went into the card management section. There it was. The supplementary card with my mom's name on it. The one I'd set up with a single verbal rule that apparently hadn't been worth remembering. My thumb hovered over the options. For a split second, I felt that old instinct kick in. Don't overreact. Don't make trouble. It's for Lydia. Let it go. Then I thought about Alice's voice. We took a vote. I thought about my dad. You can afford it. Why make a big deal? I thought about my mom's text in my 20s. We believe in you. Did they still? Or did they only believe in my wallet? I clicked lock card. A confirmation window popped up. Are you sure you want to deactivate this card? I didn't hesitate. 3 seconds later, the status turned deactivated. I exhaled, long and shaky. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about what my silence had been teaching them all these years. My silence had always been misread as agreement. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. Around 6 in the morning, before my alarm could beep, I got up, made myself black coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my phone. The family group chat sat at the top of my screen. The same chat that lit up for birthdays, holiday photos, and, more often than not, quiet requests and favors that all seemed to involve my name on a payment page. I opened it and stared at the empty text box. My fingers trembled as I started typing. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because this was the first time in my life I was going to say it clearly. The $3,842.20 transaction at Bounce and Bites Playhouse was made using the supplementary card I issued to Mom, which I stated clearly was to be used for household bills only. Giving that card to someone else and using it without my consent is completely unacceptable. I was not asked. I was not informed. This is not what family understanding means. I am requesting that the full amount be repaid to my account within 3 days. This is not a suggestion. This is a clear demand. The card was deactivated last night. Any further transactions will be declined. I read it 3 times. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Then I hit send. For a second, nothing happened. Then my message appeared, blue bubble on the screen, sitting there like a stranger among years of polite, half-truthful chats. It felt like dropping a stone into still water and watching the first ripples form. I put the phone down and wrapped my hands around my coffee mug to still the shaking. 10 minutes later, the replies started. Alice went first. What's that supposed to mean, Tessa? Talking about money like this first thing in the morning? You're blowing this up over one birthday party for your niece. What kind of family nitpicks every dollar like that? I stared at the words. It was almost impressive how quickly she had turned herself into the victim of my boundary. My mom typed next. I'm sorry if you feel upset, but I thought it was no big deal. You're in a better place financially. I figured you wouldn't mind. You gave me the card, and I just wanted to help Alice make the day special for the little one. Sorry if you feel upset. Not sorry for what I did. Not sorry for ignoring your boundary. Sorry that you took it the wrong way. I swallowed hard. Then my dad. You're an adult now, Tessa, but the way you're handling this isn't right. When family needs something, we share. If you're treating this like a legal matter, then maybe you should rethink your priorities. What caught me wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't. Not one of them mentioned paying the money back. Not one said, we shouldn't have used your card. Not one asked, are you okay? Their first instinct wasn't to fix what they'd done. It was to fix me for objecting. I put the phone down slowly. For the first time in my life, I was seeing my family clearly, without the blur of obligation and nostalgia. They didn't see this as a mistake. They saw my resistance as the problem. And as I sat there in my quiet kitchen, I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. If I didn't act now, if I backed down again, this wouldn't be a one-time betrayal. It would become the template. The rest of that day felt like walking through fog. Everything muted, everything distant, everything heavy. I kept my phone flipped face down on the table, but it buzzed every few minutes, each vibration a reminder that I had finally said no, and my family had no idea what to do with that version of me. I didn't respond to a single message. Around noon, the outside voices started chiming in. My aunt, Mom's older sister, was the first. Tessa, sweetheart, don't blow this out of proportion. Money comes and goes. Family is what matters. I stared at her text for a long time. This was the same aunt who once asked me for $2,000 to cover an unexpected emergency that turned out to be a weekend trip to Vegas. She never paid it back. She never mentioned it again. Of course, she would say money comes and goes. Next came a message from my cousin, the same cousin who had once borrowed $12,200 from me just until payday and then blocked me on Instagram for 6 months. Your mom is heartbroken, Tess. Don't let this tear the family apart. I almost laughed. Not one person asked how I felt at the birthday party when they criticized my gift. Not one asked how I felt seeing a $3,800 charge made without my consent. Not one asked why I was hurt. They only cared about keeping the family machine running smoothly, and I was the oil. I set my phone to Do Not Disturb and tried to lose myself in work. I opened my laptop, pulled up my tasks, and stared at lines of code without absorbing a single one. My mind kept slipping back to the restaurant, to Alice's expressionless face, to my mom's soft guilt-tripping tone, to my dad's flat dismissal. Around 9 that evening, I closed my laptop and finally walked toward my bed. Just as I turned off the light, my phone lit up again. FaceTime. Mom. The screen glowed in the dark, her contact photo smiling up at me. I let it ring. 5 minutes later, Alice declined. 10 minutes after that, Dad declined again. For a moment, the phone fell silent. Then a voicemail notification popped up. I hesitated before tapping it. Mom's voice filled my bedroom. She was crying. Tessa, please don't make this worse. I know you're angry, but I never thought it would come to this. I didn't mean any harm. I didn't think you'd take it this far. Please call me back. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to her shaky breaths between sentences. The guilt rolled in like a tide. It always did. I had been conditioned to it. Then another message came in. This one from Alice. Short, cold. If you're going to sue, then do it. But don't expect this family to speak to you again. I stared at her words until the edges of my vision blurred. Not a single apology. Not a single acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Not even an attempt at understanding. Just threats. Just pressure. Just consequences for daring to have boundaries. And then, unexpectedly, relief. For the first time that day, I exhaled fully. It hit me all at once. The moment I stopped being convenient, I stopped being loved. Or rather, the version of love they offered depended entirely on my ability to stay quiet. Now that I'd spoken, the illusion cracked. The next morning, I woke up early, too early. My body felt wired, running on adrenaline and disappointment instead of sleep. I made coffee, sat at the table, and finally did the thing they all claimed was too far. I called the bank. The representative asked me a few questions in a calm, professional tone. Did you authorize the transaction? No. Was the card intended for shared use? No. Was the card given to someone else to make purchases on your behalf? No. The card was meant solely for household utilities. This was not an agreed use. Understood, Ms. Randall. We'll begin the dispute investigation today. The whole call lasted less than 10 minutes. Before hanging up, the representative said, "You should expect communication within 3 to 5 business days." I thanked them. My voice didn't shake once. 2 hours later, my phone rang. My dad. I stared at his name on the screen, wondering if I should let it go to voicemail like the others. But something in me needed to hear whatever came next. I picked up. His voice was sharp, sharper than usual, not yelling, but close. "Tessa," he said, "I just heard what you did with the bank. Do you really want to take this that far?" I didn't answer immediately. He took my silence as defiance. "I don't get it," he continued. "Why are you being so hard about this? It was just a birthday party. The girl had fun. And now you're turning it into lawsuits and drama. Is this really worth it?" I closed my eyes. "This isn't about a birthday party," I said slowly. "It's about respect." Silence. I could almost hear him realizing he wasn't talking to the daughter who swallowed everything with a smile. "I made it clear what that card was for," I continued. "No one asked me. No one told me. And when I brought it up, everyone blamed me. Not one person apologized." He inhaled sharply, as if preparing to argue more. Then he stopped. "Tessa," his voice dropped, tired. "If you go all the way with this, don't expect us to welcome you back." There it was, the ultimatum. The cost of being in this family was compliance, silence, self-erasure. I didn't say goodbye. He didn't either. When the call ended, I stared at my phone for a long time. The silence afterward felt different this time. It belonged to me. I turned my phone off for the rest of the day. No buzzing, no guilt, no manufactured emergencies. Just quiet. I cooked myself dinner. I washed dishes slowly, almost ceremonially. I replayed nothing in my mind. For once, my thoughts didn't spiral. They settled. When I turned my phone back on the next evening, there were dozens of missed messages. Only one mattered. A text from my cousin, the quiet one. The one who never talked during family arguments. The one who always watched things happen but never stepped in. She wrote, "You did the right thing, but you'll probably never be recognized for it. I've heard what they've been saying about you these past few days. Cold, ungrateful. None of them will admit they were wrong. I don't dare say it out loud, but I understand." I stared at the last line until my vision blurred. I understand. 2 words, soft, private, but truer than anything I'd heard from my family in years. It didn't make the situation better. It didn't erase the betrayal. But it reminded me of something important. In a place where everyone demanded my silence, even a whisper of understanding felt like oxygen. The day ended quietly. No apologies came, no acknowledgments, no acceptance of responsibility. Just my silence, finally mine to decide. 3 days after the dispute, the bank emailed me. Subject: unauthorized transaction. Reversal approved. The $3,842.20 would be returned to my account within the week. I stared at the notification. I thought I would feel triumphant, vindicated, victorious, something big. But the emotion that washed over me was nothing. Just an exhausted emptiness, like picking up something that used to belong to you but had been handled by too many hands, smudged by too many fingerprints. The money was back, but the meaning was gone. Maybe that meaning had never been real. Life settled into a different rhythm, a calmer one, a smaller one that finally felt like it belonged to me. I muted the family group chat, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. After years of jumping every time someone typed my name, the silence felt like oxygen. On weekdays, I worked. On weekends, I hiked. Sometimes Ethan joined me. Sometimes he didn't. But for the first time since we'd started dating, I wasn't afraid to tell him when I needed company or when I needed space. I bought myself a proper chef's knife after months of telling myself my cheap one was good enough. I cooked meals I'd never tried. I learned the difference between simmering and boiling. I let myself savor things without guilt. Some afternoons, I made coffee, played an old playlist, and sat on the balcony watching the sun melt into the buildings. I hadn't realized how long it had been since I'd felt genuinely relaxed, not waiting for a request, not anticipating a problem to fix. I even started saying yes when Ethan asked if I wanted to try new restaurants, new hiking trails, new parts of town. Saying yes because I wanted to, not because it was expected. Freedom was quieter than I imagined, but it fit me in ways my old life never had. Then, one Saturday afternoon, about a month later, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Ethan was on a short work trip. No packages were scheduled. I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel and glanced at the screen showing the front doorstep. My heart dropped. Standing there were my parents and Alice. For a moment, I just stared. They looked smaller, not physically, but in presence, like people who had rehearsed something all the way there but forgot the lines the moment the doorbell rang. I opened the door just halfway. The distance, literal and emotional, felt intentional. No one spoke. My mom clutched her purse with both hands, eyes lowered like she was afraid I'd scold her. My dad looked older than he had a month ago, shoulders slumped. Alice stood stiffly, arms crossed, trying to look composed but failing. After about 30 seconds, my dad cleared his throat. I want to talk for a bit, he said, if you'll let us. I nodded once. I didn't step aside to invite them in. They understood. My mom looked up next. Her voice cracked on the very first word. Tessa? She tried again. Tessa, I know we were wrong. That whole thing, it shouldn't have happened. Her eyes glistened, but this time there was no performative sobbing, no guilt-tripping tone, just regret. I didn't realize you were that hurt, she whispered. I'm sorry. Something warm pressed against my ribs, but I held my posture. I didn't rush to comfort her. I didn't fill the silence. I didn't rescue anyone from the weight of their own words. For once, they could sit with it. My dad stepped forward slightly, hands clasped behind his back. I didn't handle it right either, he admitted, looking at the ground. We crossed a line. Your mother and I, we talked about it. We didn't see things clearly, and I'm sorry too. It was the closest thing to accountability I had ever heard from him. Then there was Alice. She lifted her chin, met my eyes, and for the first time in months, there was no edge in her voice. Look, she said quietly, I was wrong about the card, about the gift, about a lot of things. She paused, swallowing hard. I won't pretend I get everything, but I know we messed up, and I know I hurt you. I didn't mean to, but I did. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, or at least close enough to real that I felt the words land instead of bounce off. Then she added, almost under her breath, I'm tired, and I don't want us to stay like this. My mom reached out slightly, not touching me, just extending her hand halfway like a question. We'd like you to come back, she said softly, for dinner, for conversations, for the way things used to be. And that was the moment I knew. The apology was sincere, but the expectation wasn't. They wanted reconciliation, but they wanted it on the old foundation, the one where I stayed quiet, compliant, generous to the point of self-erasure. They wanted me back, but only if I returned as the version of myself they knew how to use. I drew a breath, slow and steady. I forgive you, I said quietly. My mom's shoulders sagged in relief. Alice blinked quickly. My dad straightened up, like tension had finally released from his spine. But before any of them could speak again, I added, but I'm not coming back. Silence. Not the comfortable kind, the kind that drops like a stone. My dad frowned slightly. Tessa, I'm done being the one who stays silent, I said gently. And going back would mean going back to that. I don't hate you. I'm not angry anymore. But I can't return to a place where the cost of belonging is losing myself. No one argued. No one yelled. No one tried to guilt-trip me. Maybe they finally understood. Maybe they could finally see how close they'd come to losing me entirely. After a long pause, my mom nodded. A small, sad, understanding nod. My dad avoided my eyes, staring somewhere over my shoulder, like he didn't know where to put his regret. Alice looked at me longer than both of them. Something unreadable in her eyes. Sadness, maybe. Respect, maybe. Grief for the version of me she would never get back. I stepped outside and walked them to their car. No hugs, no dramatic exits, but no slammed doors either. It wasn't peace, but it was the closest thing we had ever come to honesty. As they drove away, I stood on the sidewalk, feeling the breeze lift the hair around my face. Forgiveness is something I can give. Reconciliation is something I can choose. And sometimes choosing yourself is the only real way forward. After they left, my home felt different. Not empty, not lonely, just mine. The air felt lighter. The walls felt quieter. Even the sunlight through the curtains seemed to have changed temperature. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't bracing myself for the next unexpected blow, the next request, the next guilt trip, the next quiet obligation slipping into my lap without warning. Life didn't magically become perfect, but it finally felt like something I was living instead of something happening to me. The surprising part? Cutting off contact with my parents and with Alice didn't mean losing my entire family, because one person stayed. Bryce. Of all people, I didn't expect it to be my brother-in-law, the man who rarely spoke at family gatherings, who spent half his time making sure Lydia didn't climb onto furniture she wasn't supposed to. But after everything happened, he texted me. Just one line. If you want to still see Lydia, I'll make it work. No explanations, no conditions, no politics. Just a door left open. And through that door, every weekend or so, my phone lights up with Lydia's face. Gap-toothed, bright-eyed, with her hair forever in uneven pigtails because she insists on doing them herself. Aunt Tessa, look what I made. Guess what? I won the spelling bee. Can you watch my dance? I practiced all week. She twirls, she jumps, she shows me drawings and school art projects and stuffed animals she's decided to rename for the 4th time. And every time we hang up, she adds, Aunt Tessa, are we still going for ice cream for my birthday? That part hits me in a place nothing else can reach. Because even when the adults built walls around themselves, Lydia never stopped seeing me. Not as a wallet, not as a convenience, just as the aunt who brought her a toy oven and clapped the loudest during her imaginary cooking shows. Lydia's 7th birthday is coming up. I won't be at the family party. I've accepted that. And honestly, I don't want to be. But I already talked to Bryce. We're taking Lydia out for ice cream afterward. Just the 3 of us. Nothing fancy. No balloons, no photographers, no votes, no obligations. Just a kid, her uncle-in-law, and her aunt, sitting together on a sunny afternoon eating strawberry cones and laughing about sprinkles falling on the table. I've been thinking a lot about what to get her this year. I know I could buy something expensive now, something flashy, something her classmates would gasp over, but I don't want to teach Lydia that love is measured in price tags. I want to give her something that tells her I see her, that her joy matters, that her imagination matters, that she matters. Maybe a beginner cooking kit, maybe a kid-friendly recipe journal with stickers, maybe matching aprons, one for her, one for me, for the cooking day she keeps asking me about. If you're reading this, feel free to drop suggestions. Lydia is creative, fearless, and a little chaotic in the best possible way. I'm open to ideas. Before we wrap up, I want to tell you something I've learned, something I didn't hear enough growing up. Family is not defined by who shares your last name. Family is defined by who respects you when you say no. Some people only love the version of you that makes their life easier. Some love you only as long as you're useful. Some love what you provide, not who you are. But then there are the few, the rare few, who love you for you, who listen, who understand, who stay, even quietly, even in the background. People like my cousin who finally whispered, I understand. People like Bryce, who didn't need to take a side but chose to keep a bridge open. People like Lydia, who sees me as nothing more and nothing less than the aunt who loves her. And people like me, who finally learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks you get to control. Before I go, I want to ask you 2 things. 1. Was I wrong for fighting to get the money back after they used my card without permission? Be honest. I can take it. 2. And second, what should I get Lydia for her 7th birthday? Something thoughtful, something memorable, something that says, I'm here, I'll always be here. Thank you for being with me to the end of my story. If any part of it resonated with you, if you've ever felt unheard, unappreciated, or taken for granted, you're not alone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means more than you know. I'll see you in the next story.